What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Sunday Trialogue. I am joined by my co-hosts, Ethan Indigo and Ricardo Calvario from the Natural Philosophy Institute. Guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves. Let's go with you, Ethan, and then we will talk about what we brought.
Well, great to be here in the war world as it develops. Experience some good conversations with you guys. And I'm easy to find online. I've written a bunch of books. I'm going to bring a interesting idea today from one of my books, The Matrix of Four. Hope people check that out. And yeah, easy to find online. And again, appreciate you guys.
Awesome. Ricardo, go ahead and tell them where they can find you and what you've been working on.
Good morning. So you can find me at X at Ricardo Calvary 1. You can find me at the YouTube of Institute for Natural Philosophy and the YouTube for the Shaman and the Philosopher. I think we're going to start doing lives now because I don't have the time to edit and it's much simpler to do such. So I would like also to recommend our sister podcast, Universe Unveiled, done by Sarah and Jacqueline. Go and check it out. And my two books that are The Resonant Earth and Stardust that you both can find at Amazon or at top of my page on X with the links. And what I've been working on is, of late, I've been working on the possibility of the Bronze World in the Old World and the Copper Age, and the Bronze World to be fueled by the copper from the Upper Peninsula area. So, although today I expect to speak a little bit about the moon because it's going to be the topic of one of my guests, and so just a few tiny pieces that you can tell me what you think about them, but in its own time.
It doesn't matter what topics we bring, they all sort of relate back to each other. So let's start with the moon, and then we'll come back to the moon.
So, if you're putting me first, what I have to say is quite simple. I want to put these little things in people's minds in relation to what we think about the moon. So, the first important thing is the gravity of the moon, because it changes everything in accordance to what it is actually, right? And so we are told that it is 1/6 of the Earth. And the term is gravity surface factor, right? So it's considered to be 1/6 of the Earth, when in reality, this equals to around 16%. But the reality is it is a minimum of 64% of the surface factor of the Earth. And this only appears in two references in the literature. One of them when they finally landed, successfully, the first probe on the moon. And it's quoted by Von Braun. I can't remember his first name. From Von Braun.
Warner, maybe?
Warner. Yeah, from Braun, and is quoted by a science magazine that if you look for my paper on the moon or the videos that I have on my channel, that is in 3 parts, you'll find the exact references where to find these two sources of the 64 minimum gravity of the surface factor of the moon. The other thing I want you to consider is this. They tell us the moon has no atmosphere, right? So before the people landed there, people were writing in science magazines and the newspapers and the television that they would be able to get there and do amazing things like endless flips because there is no weight. They could jump 2 meters into the air. The golf ball that you're going to be thrown would disappear into space from the surface. However, when they actually got there, and there is footage of this, so there was this astronaut that was going to do a jump live on TV, right? And they were expecting him to go incredibly high. And when he does a jump, what happens is he jumped exactly what a normal human would jump on Earth. So why is that? It's very simple, because if you read the data, the weight of the suit was exact compensation for the remaining 26% of the weight that would make him weigh the same on Earth. So with the suit, he was weighing exactly the same weight that a human would weigh, or him would weigh on Earth. So when he did the jump, all he could do is about 30 centimeters. That's all he could do. And he tried 2 or 3 times, and that's all he could do. Now let's move to the aspect of, if no gravity, we shouldn't have any marks on the moon. No tracks, no footprints, nothing. And let me explain you why. Because before they go there, they decided to do the experiment of what happened. Because some would say, oh, they will sink into the dirt. Others say, no, there is no air, so the dirt will be compacted because there's no air to separate the molecules of the dirt itself. And so they prepared the bowling ball on top. This was done by university and was done by NASA afterwards. So they had this vacuum chamber, right? And so they hang the ball inside with a pin that can be disconnected. And in normal air, they drop the ball with what they consider to be similar dirt to the moon. They drop the bowling ball, and the bowling ball comes down and creates like 3/3, 1/3 of it gets submerged on the dirt and creates a crater around it, right? Expected. So then they take the air out of the chamber and repeat the experiment. And once the air was taken out of the chamber, they released the same bowling ball again, and the bowling ball bounced from the dirt on the base because there is no air. And there is no air, there is no molecules to separate the dirt. So it's so compacted, nothing can go through because there is nothing to go to, because there's no air that allows the movement of the molecules. It's completely compacted. And yet we have rover tracks, we have footprints, we have flags stuck into the surface. So what I'm trying to say here, and most people are now thinking, yeah, they never went to the moon. No.
Not just that, but the dune buggies, when it was spinning the tires or whatever, you could see,
the
but it fell back down. It fell back down, right? Now, if you're thinking about what zero gravity environment would be like, would there be static electricity?
Well, there's a lot
Zero
of electricity
atmosphere
in space, but
is there static electricity in space? That's in a vacuum. Do you have static electricity?
I don't think so.
Unless,
yeah, I don't think so.
That's
But the point is this: I'm not trying to say that they didn't went to the moon. I'm trying to say that the moon is much higher gravity and there is an atmosphere. Because if there weren't, none of what we've seen would be possible. More so, if we look where they decided to go, it's valleys. And they decided to go to the valleys. And this is all explained in the literature that you can find either on my paper or on the 3-part video that I've done. Because the pressure is higher. So the suits didn't need to be so robust because they needed the suits to be light. The suits don't weigh the 80 pounds that we are told, not even close. They are much lighter. And so in there is some atmosphere. And that's why we can see the tails that you said from the rover and the footprints and all of that, because there is a level of atmosphere on the valleys, at least, that allows for that to happen. So why was this done? Are we supposed to believe that it's much more difficult to be in the moon than actually is? Was this to disencourage others to follow in their steps? Right? Because the first problem they had is what's called, and I think I have an image for people to understand this. It's called I better open the image first because it's easier to share. And I think it's one of these. Yes, it could be this one.
I got an answer if you want to see real quick.
Go on. I'm ready to share, but go on.
Okay. static electricity in a vacuum is actually much stronger and worse. Low humidity, dry air allows charges to build up more
Yeah,
easily.
they can
Material,
flow.
plastic hoses, insulators, preventing charge from flowing away. Friction source, the vacuum action creates a charge through rubbing, unlike just touching the carpet. So this thing that's landing is going to create a massive charge of static electricity that can actually kill you if it discharges. So if you're on the moon, you would have, well, not just that, but every particle of dust thrown into the whatever
highly
would then stick
electrical.
to you because of the highly electrical
Yeah.
charge. There was no charges seen on the
That
suit.
that would explain why the suits were so dirty, because it
I didn't
stuck
see
to
any
them.
dirt on their suits.
Yeah, that the suits were very dirty because it sticks to them.
Hmm.
Another thing why I'll share this is, I don't know if people know this, but there are not dozens but hundreds of missions that were not done from all the Apollo missions that landed there. Hundreds of missions that were not done, and the justification on the report is exhaustion. So if there is no gravity, and they only weighted like 66 pounds or 67 pounds on the moon, as they told us, where's the exhaustion coming from? It would be a piece of cake to walk around there, like bouncing around the place. No, they failed the majority of the missions that they have to do there because they were exhausted. Exhaustion. Okay, that's what's in the reports.
Strange.
Yeah. So
Well, could it be some effect, some physiological effect from space travel that made them so tired?
no, because they already landed. This is not from the travel. This is after they landing. Why is this taking me into here instead of?
Because you'd think like every aspect of the last many years of your life was geared to that day or those days, and you'd do everything you possibly could to make it happen.
No, because when they planned it on Earth, we're talking about people. We're talking about people with a very high training. These
Right.
people don't get tired easily, right?
That's what I'm saying.
So it is the fact that in the moon the conditions were similar to the Earth, and they trained to do it in 1/6 gravity, and that's
How do you
not
have,
just the reality. So
how do you have a density of nothing?
let me see if I find the image that I was looking for. Because the funny thing is, this distance is only found in two. I think I have. No, this is one of the reference from the literature. But I have here a diagram that I hope I haven't passed yet,
Hmm.
because the most important thing to go to the moon is the neutral point. And I have here what they thought it was and what it was in reality. Oops, there it is. Oh, what happened?
Nope,
Okay,
got small.
so this is what they thought it was: 23,900 miles, 23,900 miles, right? So what happens here is, when you launch a spacecraft, not only is doing this because it cannot go straight, obviously, because everything is rotating, right? It's not stationary object from one point to the other. They have to keep accelerating until they reach the neutral point. And when they reach the neutral point, they have to start deceleration, right? So that's why the Russians and the Americans failed again and again and again and again, because they were following a mathematical equation developed on Earth without experience.
Right.
So when finally the first object landed there, and this was the Russians that didn't share the information, it had to be stolen, they realized that the gravity point, the neutral point, was not at 23,000 miles or almost 24, but was at 43, which means the gravity is much stronger. Right? In here, this should be more in here, but that's the image that they created. So, for instance, I have an image here of one of the things that one of the probes they launched before.
Well, I have a quick interjection. So if we are to believe that they've been to space and they've landed on the moon,
There it
that
is.
also means that they should be the ones spiking uniformitarianism, right? Because nothing worked the way they expected it to,
No.
or how their calculations played
No.
out. Which, if uniformitarianism is the truth or closer to the truth, that should be the case. But it didn't play out that way. So
No.
you either have to tell me it's fake or that uniformitarianism isn't always true.
No, it doesn't
Like
work.
they want to give up either one of those things, so we're left with another contradiction.
So you see what this lady is holding? So this is their proudly presentation of a balsa wood that would have sensors in the middle of it, right? You see it on the space spaceship on the left, on the probe. So these were prepared to impact at 400 miles an hour without braking. Okay, that's what they were designed for, with a very safety margin of 300 miles an hour. But they were expected to crash at until 400 miles an hour and still survive. What happened was because they finally got the trajectory in order to actually get to the surface of the moon, they only missed the neutral point. And so the spaceship got there so fast that once impact, all of this was destroyed. It was pulverized. This balsa wood that you see here from the data, it was pulverized on impact, something that was prepared to hit at least 300 miles an hour without a scratch and until 400 miles an hour and still work. And this was the first indication that they had once, because they had finally impacted the moon, which means they finally hit it, that they were not doing the right thing. There's something was wrong with the mathematics of it. So when the Apollo 11 finally landed there, they used that new distance that I showed you before, the 43,000 miles instead of 23,000. Do you see the difference between 23,000 miles while you stop accelerating and 43,000 miles distance? It's 20,000 miles earlier, right? Now, what I find very intriguing is the fact that they don't share the information, because every time a new space organization try to get to the moon, they do the same. Either they shoot and pass through the moon completely, or they impact it and they crash. Even the Chinese. How is that they didn't have this correct information? Why did they have to discover it by themselves? Why it wasn't shared neither by the Russians or by the Americans? It's like, oh, we've been through this, so you got to go through the same thing that we did. We don't care, right? So it's just the fact that I looked for, and there is only two references on the literature: the press release given from Werner von Braun once Apollo 11 landed, and this scientific report that is more like a magazine than a scientific report, but they consider it to be so. Thank you. That mentions this 43,000 distance that was they used for finally to reach the moon. So, how the question, my final question is, how much more are we not told of things that are more or less obvious, right? This is the moon, but what else are we not told, right? What else is there that we
And
should?
how much are we, to second that, how much are we told that is to distract us from asking the question pertinent to what we're not knowing, right? And then we're steered into some manure, basically political dialogue that's not even relevant to
Is this different? Is this different from Columbus was the first? Well, there is that band of Vikings that got to Newfoundland. Yeah, they stayed there for a few weeks, but that doesn't count. What really counts is the guy that went there and allowed us to kill all the Indians was not the Vikings. So that's the guy that showed that how is it called? True manifest? No, manifest.
Manifest Destiny.
Manifest destiny. Yeah. So,
Hmm.
so these are things that you ask a scientist, a physicist, and he will tell you, believing it to his core, that the moon is 1/6 of gravity of the Earth. He doesn't know different. He's not blamed to be keep saying that it is 1/6 because that's what is in every single book except these two references, right? So it's like you knowing your name and give your other name to everybody that you introduce yourself. They are not to blame for not knowing, right? So this is what I'm trying to say is scientists are not necessarily bad people, or they are not trying to hide things on purpose. The same with historians, archaeologists, whatever. What matters is the source of the information. This is why it's so important to people to see The Science Delusion from Rupert Sheldrake, either the band presentation at TED that banned his presentation, although it still survived because people have captured it and it's still on YouTube. Because most of our assumptions in science are based in sand pillars because we are not sure about them. So if they fail, all of our science, all of our physics will crumble. And what are we finding?
It does every so many decades, it seems.
But now, each time we have new telescopes and new space telescopes there showing what the universe is like, we're finding almost every week that our assumptions were wrong. We're seeing objects in space doing things that they don't align with physics. We've seen concentrations of elements that couldn't be according to our physics in terms of gravity and correlation of elements. We're finding things that contradict all, but this is all filtered in a way that you say, oh yes, it's different, but we just have to adapt our science a little bit to it. We are keep adapting, and the more we adapt, the more we'll fail in the future. When it is really important to use those elements, it will be the same as the moon. We'll crash it on the moon, or we'll fail it completely.
It's interesting you bring up that idea, and I've noticed that if you bring up the term physics, people have no problem with it. If you bring up the term metaphysics, it sets off alarm bells and prevents them from really engaging. I don't know why, but that word has been appropriated into the woo woo place that people don't want to talk about metaphysics. But you're literally, or we can ascribe metaphysic attributes to these cosmic instances.
So-
and another
so
one
you-
I've noticed too is patriot. If you say patriot, people freak out. So to find where at least the beginnings of where are these subjects being prevented from true study. If people are alarmed about even the word, it's inclination of that.
I think I forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry. I just thought it was a good point.
I focused on what you were saying.
Your idea is great, and
Oh, I was going to say that isn't physics completely based on metaphysics? Isn't the base of physics metaphysics?
Right. Well,
Is
certain.
why is it that it is not woo woo to say that there are brains dividing dimensions? That's what I call them, brains. So these brains are the membranes that in quantum physics divide realities, right? Dimensions. So and they mathematically find at least 11 to 13 brains dividing reality. We are in between one of those brains, and what we experience is between two of those membranes that they call brains for some reason, right? And this is what we can experience with our senses. However, reality includes all of those 11 to 13 brains. and that's the complete fabric of reality as they can see it now in quantum physics and in terms of mathematical results, right? Isn't that woo woo? Because they cannot see it, they cannot prove it. It's just a mathematical conclusion. It's just what matter adds up, interactions between atoms and electrons, what they find in the Hadron Collider that's called CERN. So my point here is, are we basing all our reality in unknowns or mistaken concepts? And it still works.
I got a great example of that. So we just got done doing an interview with this guy Ashish from Phoenix, Arizona, and he's very. Did you watch that one?
I haven't finished the entirety, but he blew my mind in the first 15 minutes and continuously in regards to other things. Sorry to interrupt, but just for everyone that hasn't seen it, this is a great one.
Right. There is no more of a pure physics, no woo-woo type of guy than Ashish, right? He says it's all mathematics, it's all in the brain, there is no soul, nothing. That's his perspective. And he's going up against science right now because they are shoving LiDAR down everyone's throats when it comes to these self-driving cars and when it comes to AI. Right. So the whole idea here is that they're so committed to LiDAR and they can't expand their perception enough.
They got their blinders on, at least, or if not implemented blinders. Sorry to interrupt, Headless, but yeah, great.
No, yeah, and he's talking about this cloud of lasers being ineffective at motion driving. Like if you're talking about LiDAR to pick out these artifacts out of the soil, perfect. That's what it's meant for. But if you're talking about an object in motion, you're not going to want LiDAR as your only steering mechanism. It doesn't make sense because it's like one single color. You can only see the world in one single color, and that color is depth. You don't know what the color of the shape next to your car is. So it could be a plastic bag, it could be a cat, because you only see the one monochromatic color of distance, and you don't see all of the details in every shape.
But does LiDAR give you the speed of the other object?
Yes, LiDAR gives you the speed and the distance, but it's not a good indicator of trying to judge what stuff actually is. So you'll get the shape and you'll get the distance, but you won't know what it is because you're judging it based off of shape. And not all shapes are the same, but you can kind of take the shape of like letters as a human being. Are you a letter or are you a human? You see what I'm saying? So like, having this thing judge the world in monochromatic is not a good way of steering a car, but because it's invisible and because it's futuristic, they've committed trillions of dollars in future contracts to LiDAR. All he's saying is that you cannot come to these judgments without more, lines in the spectrum of color. You actually have to broaden it out because the more colors you can see, the more objects you can recognize using these other methods. And
the way he was describing the numbers is, it would seem to me that LiDAR in that fashion is going to die, right? The number of crashes and the kind of implemented investment into that university. I won't, get into the details too much, but it seems like that would be the reasoning for why it's being implemented, and it's going to fall off because it's just not working.
But my question here is, why they are trying to reinvent self-driving cars when they were invented around the 18th century? I'm not going to say 17, but they were invented in the 18th century.
Good question.
And they work perfectly. They're called taxis.
It's a fair question. Why do people try to invent a lot of things? Like, I think it's because they can.
What is the idea? Look, if we as a civilization had already our problems solved, if people were already occupied in matters like culture, even religion, creation, because there are no jobs, because robots are doing things, because AI is doing things, then people have to do other things. And then we do need a self-driving car because there is no one to drive the car. But at that point, we have reached such evolution that it's easy to create a car or a system, not the car, but a system that can navigate itself through the world, right? Because
Well,
it's been tested and retested and so on. But we are
Ash-
doing completely the otherwise. We want to put the driving cars in front of solving all the other problems, right? So
Ashish is coming to some very shocking conclusions by looking into computer vision, right? Computer vision is this form of AI that he's trying to put into the cars so that they don't keep wrecking all the time and killing people, right? Like Waymo's, their accident rates are through the roof. And now Waymo uses a algorithm that they created to reduce those numbers so that they can get better federal contracts. It's ridiculous. Like the corruption is right out in the open with this guy. I highly suggest he go on your show with you and Jason. I think that would be amazing. You guys interviewing Ashish as well. But the conclusion he's coming to is that computer vision is the way intelligence developed in humans. Everything is based off of the eye. The eye is brain tissue, right? And the brain tissue of the eye forms the circuitry of everything else that comes after. So his looking at AI from that perspective and building basically a new kind of perceptive consciousness within. Well, I mean, it's hard to identify consciousness, but a new form of perception on intelligence. This is why GUIs, all these different, what are they called? I'm blanking out. Okay, so you've got two forms of memory, right? You got RAM and you got solid state. And then there's the graphics card.
ROM and RAM, right?
Yeah, the graphics cards are being used by all of these AI companies because it's simulating the same intelligence as the brain with microchips. It's a graphical card. It uses graphical data. Again, this is all being driven by video games. But the basic idea is that the eye forms intelligence first, right? And if you take it from that point, they're actually building real AI versus the fake AI, which is these large language learning models. Large language learning models benefit like 70% when you introduce visual stimuli to them. They can actually start to describe things better. What's that? So all of this intelligence is based around the eye and vision. And that's what drives evolution, apparently, is perception and vision. If he's right about that, that's incredible.
That was actually God Smiley Judge, I believe, or whatever, just mentioned something, and that was what really blew my mind. And what you just said, what first blew my mind about Ashish was that some of the first life forms were in part tails to move and optic sensors. And light detectors where is there light or not? That was basically their function, not any more detailed than that. And that was the first, what is it called? The first how's the first computer programs are basically
binary
code, right? And that he pointed out that being the first binary code of on off, light there or light not there of the optic nerve of first life form. I thought that
electricity, no electricity is as dumb as that. Right? Mm-hmm. And you are trying to obtain, because this is what Headless is, I think, is trying to say. When I look at where I am, I don't need a mathematical equation to tell me how far is that table, right? Or what objects do we have in front of me and what do I have to do to avoid them? Because all of that is instantaneous. You obtain that instantaneously, right? However it is processed, right? Especially thinking that the brain works at the speed of a horse-driven chariot. That's the speed of the brain, the electricity on the brain. That's how it works. Some people might think that it's all very happening very fast. No, the brain works extremely slowly. That's why when they started doing the first computer, they say, "Oh, this is much better than the brain. Look at the speed of the processing." The problem is we don't work with zeros and ones. We don't work with electricity or no electricity. There's something above it.
Well, I think
That's
you hit it on the head when you started it off. You said it's like electricity, no electricity. Well, what if that electricity is light? Like all the ancients knew of light as like the bringer of life, and the eyes are what's processing the light, and that's the first place that the intelligence is sparked is through the eyes. Whoa! So there is something really deeply spiritual about the eyes when you take it in regards to this eternal life source, which is light. It's almost like our perception of light is what brought us life and intelligence, and all these things have built upon the perception of light. And think about the when you're talking about conception, you've got the calcium ion reaction when the sperm is introduced to the egg. It's light.
light.
It's the very first light. It's starting the process of life. And what did the Greeks have as their ancient god of beginning of everything? Phanes protogenos, light, the firstborn. You can't get much more on the nose than that. But the way he's describing it is basically this: you have to be able to interact with your environment to be intelligent. That's just the very, very basics. The only way you can interact with your environment well is by having the intelligence to process what you're seeing accurately. What the world around you has to have a way of getting in for you to be successful at creating more life, just on the most basic level of it. And so, yeah, it makes sense when you boil it all down to that one basic truth is your ability to survive depends on your ability to interact with the environment. Now, look at bats. Bats decided they used to be on top of the surface, right? But they decided we're going to go live in a cave, and they destroyed their eyesight. And so now bats have a problem with smooth surfaces. They can't have the same resolution using the echolocation that they developed because they've destroyed their source of light.
Interesting.
Right? So it's almost like they can't come out of the cave again. They can't survive in the light.
Well, someone might be thinking somewhere, yeah, but how about blind people? Right? How do they navigate our world? And
There's an expression in no, I'm sorry. Please, sorry.
no. Go ahead. I was just going to say.
I
No,
was
go
going to
ahead.
answer it. I was going to answer the question. Well, there's an expression in Taoism or China, ancient China, if you will. Hear with the eyes and see with the ears, and this is a way to kind of cross-reference the senses and maybe make yourself more sensitive to what's going on. But you can get to the point of not daredevil, but you can, like, if you know an area, if you want to know if someone's there, you can say, hey, and the sound will ruffle different if there's a person there or not, if you know the area, right? So you can, in effect, see with your ears and hear with your eyes in a lot of different ways. Blind people become exceptionally so, right? Blind and deaf people, their other senses get hyper attuned.
And that was my point. Is
Yeah.
sight is the most efficient way to do it, right? So obviously, if we take natural selection for anything, it would help organisms that have sight in regards to organisms that don't have sight, right? They would have
I don't think
advantage.
it's a binary.
Advantage, yeah. But my point is, it's about the blind people. That's what I'm going to get. In the absence of sight, it's the combination of your senses that allows you to navigate the world in a less efficient way, but they still allow you to navigate the world, right? And I think that's how AI is right now. It's kind of using a lot of external things to sight in order to understand where it is. and how to maneuver from those meanders, right? All in a basic system that is electricity and no electricity, which delays the whole process no matter how fast they make the processors. That's why a quantum computer that doesn't depend on electricity and no electricity is much similar to the functioning of a brain, right? Because it can calculate in numbers things at the same time without depending on just a zero and a one. It's doing it multiple and multiple, hundreds of thousands of times, right? And I just want to finish that what you said make complete sense to me in terms of the graphic cards. They are not using CPUs. They are using GPUs. They are using graphic cards to compute. Even the new supercomputer, super AI from NVIDIA that costs $6,000. There is this small box that they just presented. Doesn't have a processor unit. Doesn't have an i5 or i7 or i9. None of it. It just have video cards in it, right?
Computer vision.
And
Vision.
And that makes sense because I have been wondering why is AI only using video cards and not processing units, right?
Now think about this. If it is all visual and it takes it back to the human brain, why is our brain so much more efficient than all of this hardware? Like, why is there so much more energy going into these things as opposed to these brains that are doing it a lot better than these graphics cards?
Maybe because I think that the easiest explanation, doesn't mean it's real, the easiest explanation is that they are trying to use this computer unit, this processing unit that is video cards, doing everything. And our brain is not doing everything. Our brain is just interfacing. And if it is just interfacing, it doesn't require that computing power.
This is where the divergence happens, because he doesn't accept that there is an interfacing activity. Although, we do have stuff like this, which kind of proves it.
You are witnessing children reading and playing, completely blindfolded.
The other dragons were purple with smooth, shiny scales.
It might seem like a magic trick, and when I first saw it, I thought the same thing. This can't be true. But what if I told you that you too can train yourself to see without your physical eyes?
Jumbo.
Anyone can do this. And if we can train our brains to see with the blindfold on, then we can also cultivate this higher power to make our brain do just about anything. So how do we do it? There are a few different methodologies that all achieve the same result because they're based on the same principle. If you believe it, you can achieve it.
I can do this. Anybody can do this. Everything's your attitude.
Green, excellent. Pink, marvelous.
In your head, you just need to think, please may I turn my energy on.
So then how are these children and adults seeing in pitch black masks? They're able to see because they truly believe that there is light present in the environment around them. They visualized that there was light coming in from the environment, piercing through their mask, and soon enough, the light became so bright that they could see as if the masks weren't even there.
Tell me what's on this card.
Teacup.
Belief can supersede what the brain thinks and does. It's the ultimate validation that our consciousness can make our physical brain do exactly what we want it to do. We all have the power to achieve and manifest these superhuman abilities. So it's not seeing is believing, but rather believing is seeing.
All right. So how does that play with
That's beautiful.
how does that play with the computer vision? Because they're not using vision anymore. They're using light. The firstborn. There's a connection with something outside of the body. It's not just all about the brain anymore.
Just a curiosity, are there any papers related to what we just saw?
Yes, lots.
There are? Okay, I have
You haven't heard? Oh, Rupert Sheldrake helped start this group. The Mindful community was on several podcasts. Oh, I'll hook you up with the website. Yeah.
Thank you. I used to receive his newsletter. I don't know why I don't receive it anymore.
There's a bunch of weird stuff going on with Sheldrake. We keep trying to get him on the show.
Well, he was kind enough to. Well, in fact, the Moon paper. He was kind enough to read it, but he didn't comment on it because he said it's off. Is find it interesting, but it's off his area of interest or expertise. And in terms of coming to the podcast, at the time, he was very nice in replying, but he didn't came. So I hope you can manage because I think he's one of the most fascinating people still alive, and he's not young. So,
well, a lot of what they do is geared towards children because they don't believe that adults have the belief ability to get to the place of actually believing that light is entering through the mask. So if they can't believe it, they can't see it.
So how does this fit? Tell me, because I'm off this subject. How does this fit? I just got some material from not from him, but that he wrote. Richard Feynman, I think it's his name, Feynman. It's one of the most known physicists in our science, and he says clearly, light doesn't travel. Right. This is one of the most acclaimed and respected physicists on our, and this is not young anymore, but on our current state of science, and he stated that light doesn't travel. And that's one of the few things that I saw from the paper. I didn't have time to read the rest, but it was highlighted. And then I was seeing the video where he says it, that light does not travel. So if because he's trying to explain, because he was asked, why isn't anything capable of traveling faster than light? And his answer was, no, light doesn't travel.
Right. Well, that's kind of like what I was talking about.
So light is everywhere. That's why I'm trying to relate. What are you saying? So light is everywhere. It doesn't matter if you have your eyes open or closed, because life is always everywhere.
Right. Well, light is part of the spectrum that surrounds absolutely every object. It is once you lose the objects, you lose the light. But that's one of the problems, is they think because this invisible form of light is hitting everything in a cloud of laser beams, that somehow makes it better than our eyes, because now it can bounce, so they can know precisely how far away things are. But that's almost the metaphysics of the insurance salesman, the metaphysics of the insurance adjuster, right? Is we have to make sure that we're not going to hit other people. So we have to measure the proximity the whole time. You're not doing that when you're driving your car. You're relating things as they relate to other things. So you're not trying to figure out how many meters down to the centimeter you are away from the car in front of you. You're relating where it is in relationship to other objects as you're moving past them.
The pressure you have to put on your brake pedal to don't impact the car in front of you, calculating of speeds, incoming traffic, knowing when you can pull up, calculating the speed of the other vehicle coming in the same direction or in opposite direction. You do all of that instantaneously. Well, most people do it pretty bad. That's why they drive very badly. But it is possible.
You see the problems when you limit your intake of light. You're limiting your intake and ability to, interact with the outside world. So that's my pitch. Everybody get into aura viewing, because you're actually seeing a different spectrum of light.
That's dope. And there's, every esoteric and religious tradition, all of their practitioners are all pursuing enlightenment. Whether they'll call it that or not, if they're religious, maybe they won't associate it with that word, but that's what it's all about, man. right?
You know that there is this particle called a neutrino, right? You ever heard
Neutrino,
of it?
yeah.
Neutrino. Neutrinos couldn't care less about matter.
Right.
They just go through anything. So it's present everywhere. Is this the light that they are seeing?
Could be. Or they're not seeing from inside of their minds. Like it's a limited form of like out of body experience, right? So there's other mindful people who acknowledge that there are parts on their head, right? As they're blindfolded, right? There's parts on their head that can actually see better than other parts. So sometimes they'll hold a card up to around here because they get better vision that way.
Trippy. That's strange. It feels like both a primal and transcendent pursuit of light.
Bingo.
Right?
It's bringing the ancient back because think about it. We didn't have language. So the way people perceive the world was very, very different. We couldn't normalize and standardize everybody else's perception. So there were a lot of perceptions going on. As you can imagine, a person with this powerful of fucking water AI quantum computer would go around and do a lot of strange things. So once you bring language into the picture, that all of these other ways of seeing and perceiving and all the rest of the stuff that people develop to survive in their environment, like we're talking about with intelligence in the beginning, it all sort of goes away because now we've got one frame of reference to work off of, which is just the word, the logos made flesh, right? But the whole idea is that the logos is how the world is made, right? It's made by command, but that's not true. It's made through vision. Vision is how the world is created. And
the eye of God.
Right. We lost sight of it. We had Fanes protogonos, where the egg is entered by the sperm or the snake. There's a massive flash of light. And then, this is the beginning of life. I mean, they're describing something right there that we're talking about today. It's light, the firstborn. So, how could we get off of that? Well, we're not thinking about vision. We're not thinking about perception. We're not thinking about observation. We're now thinking about the word and what we can get with the word. And I think it's less about belief as much as it is about acknowledging, right? Acknowledging that there are other forms of perception.
So how far-fetched it is to grab this blindfolded but seeing the light to actually going into a form of telekinesis, not telekinesis, of telepathy. Let me explain.
They were on the telepathy tapes.
Let me explain. Because emotions create vibrations, and the vibrations can be identified as colors, right? So you can actually hear people's thoughts, at least in the basic sense of if they are being loving, if they are being aggressive, if they are a menace or they are a friend. I think this can all be seen in that process of being blindfolded and just getting the light and how the light interacts with things, right? Does it produce colors? Is this a next phase of study? I'm just questioning. I don't know because I don't know anything about this.
Well, I think it's a matter of for instance, the reason why Sheldrake, as you pointed out, Ellis, worked with young people is because us old folks, we have more likely blockages in our belief constructs. We've set forth concrete principles on how we look at things, some of them rooted in trauma, right? So we're not going to, and some of them rooted in traumatic training systems as religious kind of repress any notion of our intuition or psychic being a witchcraft type of thing, right? So I think, right, we got our blinders on. As soon as we address the fact that we do as individuals have blinders on, we begin to remove them or decrease their angle, right? Open up. I think. But yeah, I think that's an example of why he would work with young people, is because it's more likely that we're blocked in some manner.
They say it in the book all the time. He blinded their eyes, right? So you're not allowed to see outside of it. So it's like it's taking away the free will. The less vision you have, the less free will you have.
And easy using in all of this group of young people that are being studied in this. Did he pick any blind people?
Yes, that's actually how they develop the program, is through blind people teaching other people how they're capable of seeing and how they're doing it.
So we now evolve from this idea that a blind person can be taught to use parts of his brain as a sonar to actually,
that's one form,
bring definition to the world instead of LiDAR images like sonar that you get, right?
Well, that's the thing too. They have a form of LiDAR for those people who cannot see. The people who cannot see still want to see, right? The clicks and stuff, it's like one color. It's all monochromatic. This is why they show sonar in monochromatic terms, right? So when you're bouncing stuff off of other objects from the source, you don't get as much definition as absorbing the actual light itself, right? So it's all very one-dimensional when you're talking about bouncing vibrations off of stuff. Like that would include lasers and sonar. This is something different. This is taking it in, right? I think that's the real dividing point is, between the Eloi, the people who have to be projecting all the time, the ones in the darkness, and the people who are talking about the light, those are the ones taking it all in. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to do these things. That's how you grow.
Is there any image of how they think that the children
computer vision
are watching? Are watching the world?
No, they have no idea. Like they've done EEG scans and stuff like that, and they'll see that there is more activity in the areas where the kids say they have the strongest vision. Right?
I almost think that there is some sort of trick to them telling the kids, don't worry, there is some small light of coming through. And that trick to their conscious to go, oh yeah, I can do it then. Yeah, you can do it then. Trust me. And they...
Oh no, Ethan. He's up at the worst time. No, he's absolutely right. That's what they told the kids first. What they told the kids first was that we're going to leave a little crack right here, and there's going to be enough light for you to see. And the kids were like, okay, but there was no crack. So they were just lying to the kids, and the kids just believed that there was a crack and there was light coming in, and that light allowed them to see everything.
There's an expression that we use to share Tai Chi, to teach Tai Chi. People inevitably will ask a certain number of questions. One, how do I sense Chi? The answer is first you imagine it, and then you cannot unimagine it. And there's other even instances that itself is true. There's other instances in practice where you essentially lie to instill upon them the power of their own practice, right? Which that idea of they did, right? No, you're completely blind. Any adult would know, yeah, dude, there ain't no crack of light coming through. I'm above 16 years old. You can't lie to me. Whereas a kid is like, oh, okay, wait, are you doing it too? Yeah, I think so. Oh, okay, tick. And then their just consciousness takes over.
Right. Once you click into the ability to believe something is real, it becomes so much easier to continue to believe that it's real. But you have to have that sort of that click. Exactly. The click. But that actually brings up what computer vision was talking about when it comes to video games. Right now, they render levels in video games only based upon the perception of the main character. So as the main character is looking around the screen, that's when it's rendered, is when the character is picturing something, right? So when you're moving that camera around, when you're picturing that thing, that's when it's created.
Well, the rest exists mathematically.
That's called the dream. When you're looking on the inside, you're only rendering what's in front of you. You don't really render things behind you until you turn around. What they're talking about is computer vision has invented dreams, and they're called video games. These are computer simulations created inside of these graphical user interfaces that are.
Well, I wouldn't put it past the fact that that's
GPUs.
That's
It's all vision.
accidental, because that's really how we perceive things, right? And so
they're discovering it from the reverse direction. And
yeah,
they don't realize it.
It's reverse engineering.
No.
On a technology that no one knows how it works. But
basically, video games were how computers interacted with us, right? That was their sensory organ. And so now we're building all of their new sensory organs around video games, because this is how the computers started to learn. And then you created this feedback loop, which is now creating artificial intelligence, right? Is based on the same way that cells would do it within evolution or whatever. Like there's something interacting with it, some form of energy, and it's able to manipulate that energy and build itself, right? And if you look at the mitochondria doesn't even have animal DNA in it. So somehow these organelles acquired this thing that now reproduces on the same sort of track that we're on two separate tracks that have come together inside of the cell. Mitochondria are weird as fuck. It doesn't make any sense. If we're going to look at that and be like, well, maybe it found a way to manipulate this energy source. And that's how it created itself into what we see as life today. Well, now computers are kind of an artificial form of that. And we are sort of like their mitochondria, right? And we're building the cells for them that now are getting bigger and bigger and engulfing the world. So if we're thinking about this as another organism, maybe we're the mitochondria. Maybe this is a mutually beneficial relationship that, this thing is going to look out for us or something. I don't know. It could be a new form of cellular life. That's all I'm saying.
But you know that they just found out, they just released a paper like 1 or 2 weeks ago, that we have the exact same genes that allow these geckos to rebuild limbs. Exactly the same gene. The difference is, in the gecko, you cut a leg and the gene is activated. In humans, you cut a leg and the gene is suppressed.
Right.
It's suppressed. Right?
So it's not just inactive, it's suppressed.
No, the gene is active. It is actually suppressed anytime it's needed. You see the weirdness of this, right? While in the gecko is active and is directed to the problem when it arises, in humans is active, and when you need it, it is automatically suppressed. And that's why we scar instead of we heal. That's the difference between scarring and healing, right?
Now, I know about the areas inside of our DNA that have looked like they've been manipulated about 200,000 years ago. Is this another one of those areas?
This is to me the most evident, the most irrefutable thing that I found, that humans have been manipulated. Because it wasn't in someone's interest that we not only could live much longer, that we could regenerate ourselves. Like we have a deficient part, the body just knows how to generate, because information is in you. It's in our DNA and the RNA. The whole information to make you, it's in you, right? It just doesn't work for some reason. It's like they also found that the anti-aging processes within the cells are encoded in the cells. They are just suppressed. So your cells could continually regenerate themselves instead of dying, but something in the information that is given to them, it allows them to die or decay instead of generate, because there's another one who's going to take its place. But that process only takes a few times. So after a few million or billion or zillion, I don't know, regenerations of the cell that died in that place, it ends. The cycle is ended for you. Like it's like they saying your heart has a more or less 1 billion heartbeats to function. When it's not true, your heart can continuously beat endlessly because it doesn't need to decay as long as everything that he needs keeps being given to it. There's no reason to there is a decay. The decay is programmed into us at
Are
some
you talking
point.
about the telomere length?
What?
Are you talking about the telomere length, the end of the DNA that's sort of being, slowly eaten away over time, or is that something
No,
different?
there's
I think
something
that's
different.
part
I
of it.
think it's part of
That's
it,
a-
but it's
it's a
not
result
what
of
I'm
it.
saying. What I'm saying is there are informations coded into the regulation functions of the organism to limit us. So if we are limited in that respect, aren't we also limited in the areas of the brain that could be connected? And some people do and can do those things. So what, for instance, these kids, what they are doing is reconnecting things that are not wired to be connected in the first place. It's by self-actuation that they are bringing to reality, because it's a placebo effect. They believe, oh, the light is going to come on from that so I can see, and they ended up by actually seeing.
I would suggest there are ways to manipulate our body's chemical composition, yoga and Tai Chi being among the least harmful ones, right? I don't mean by pharmaceutical concoction. So even working out, there are ways to input our
But
chemical
Ethan,
makeup.
are
and trigger-
those ways, were those ways invented because it stopped being natural?
I don't refute your idea at all. I'm just saying in the predicament.
Someone
are-
figured out how to get them back by these practices, right?
Guys,
Yeah,
we got a code
yeah.
red.
I believe that would be more most likely. Yeah.
We got a code red on that film. Corey Feldman is in it. Code red. Code red. Pull out. But it does have Michael Dorn. So if you like Worf from Star Trek, he's in it too.
So I had headless. I know we wanted to touch base on some more current events, maybe, but I had a little idea that is maybe. Well, I think it's an important idea, and it's maybe related to what we've been talking about. I have it up here if I can share it. I'm not sure what I do. From
Sure.
here.
Let me throw it up there.
There we go. Okay.
There we go.
So we've been talking about the binary code, which that by itself is binary. There's no need to look for more than the two, I would say. And the Carlos, Ricardo, you mentioned the unknown and knowns. This is a big dynamic, and the pursuit of light and the amidst the darkness. Then what I wanted to touch on today is the Hegelian dialectic. And I relate it to Buddhism by way of the 14 unanswered questions of Buddha. And this gets really super mathematical and kind of relates to the polarity or binary we've been kind of putting forth a bit. I'll read the 14 unanswered questions of Buddha, which are actually in a formation of 4, even though I believe the latter two are not in 4. So anyway, so I'll read them. Is the universe eternal or not, or both, or neither? Is the universe finite or not, or both, or neither? Is the self identical with the body, or is the self different from the body? Does the Tathagata, the Buddha, I believe, exist after death, or not, or both, or neither? So you can see that formation of 4. Besides, there's one distinct one that is in a just a polarity.
Each question
that
is 4 questions.
Each question is essentially 4 questions, and described as the 14 unanswered questions of Buddha. For as the story goes, Buddha would go and teach lessons and have discussions with people and answer their questions. And these were the only questions that he answered with silence. He could not answer them. For any answer to them, as the story goes, is useless in relationship towards the development of our psyche, towards the pursuit of enlightenment, if you will.
So not to be detrimental, but the real questions that matter, the illuminated one could not answer them.
Well, or are these are maybe, as you put it, the real questions. I think there's a lot of real questions, but these are the ones that he said.
I'm just placing it in the meaning of life, right?
It's interesting that these are always asked, of course, right? These are the profound questions. You're right. You could be accusational in respect to that. You're right.
I'm not being accusational, because I think
not necessarily.
I don't think they're meant to be answered.
That's I believe what Buddha summarized as well. That
they're meant to be experienced, and any answer is valid.
And what is the point of life? The point of life is finding a point. I believe, essentially, right? So, and I believe these questions are best left unanswered. Is what because Buddha summarized.
Every single point in our existence is based on objectives. We always have an objective, and we move from objective to objective.
And some of them can be quite silly, especially in relationship to any Buddhist principles or Christian principles, for that matter, right? Some of them can be quite silly. We're all just silly people.
Well, on that note, it's enlightenment, right? For you to be enlightened, you have to be able to see
the light.
And sometimes it takes, maybe the Buddha knew, maybe he didn't know, but sometimes it takes just, maybe not obsessing on questions and or admitting that there are some things that we don't have the proper answer to in this modality.
Remember the architect, when he asked him, "Why am I here?" This is, what's the meaning of life? He answers, although that question seems to be the most important, it is also the most irrelevant.
Right. Well said. So I share that because it's a quite profound subject just into itself, as we find here, just those questions themselves and why he didn't answer them is a quite profound topic, known as the imponderables of Buddha, or the 14 unanswered questions. But I really wanted to share them in respect to the 4 aspects, which are quite mathematical in their approach, and now relate that to the Hegelian dialectic. This we see play out beginning with really what you first covered, Ricardo, the topic of how many times we've been steered to not look at what is the subject pertaining to the truth and look somewhere else. And I would add too, how many times have diabolical leaders done diabolical things to hide their diabolical past? And so their diabolical present looks super bad, but it's not as bad as their past. The present makes me have to ask that. So this formation of questioning, though, or processing, is a really valuable one. Not to say that other forms of processing, like the binary system, does not have value in and of itself. However, with the knowns and unknowns, if you add what I call the matrix of 4 to it, you get even more subtle, kind of complete coverage of information in effect. there are the known and unknowns, but there are also the known unknowns and the unknown knowns, right? These are important things in the consideration of tactics and esoterics, for that matter. Were you going to say something, Ricardo?
I was just wondering if you both watched the movie Lucy.
I don't think so. I'm not sure. What is it about?
Lucy, that's light.
Lucy is is forced to be a courier for some new drug, and they implant the drug inside the patients for them to pass the airport. So they do a surgical implant in their abdomen of these bags of this drug, and so he was tried to be abused, and in the process she is beaten, and one of the bags has a crack, and some of that drug starts going into the system instead of being intake, right? And that drug, for some reason, makes the brain hyperactive in terms of energy, and it transcends the brain itself and starts to create a new understanding of reality. So it's like you being in a video game, and what I call and my friend calls it to see the architect. That is when you are in the game and you start being in parts of the game that you are not supposed to be, and you start seeing how the world is shaped. You see 4 dimensions instead of 3 dimensions. You see what's above, what's below. You see the matrix of the creation. You almost can see the algorithm of how things are created. And this is the process that she been through until she reaches the singularity. So once she got to certain levels of having the drug in her body, reality itself became just something playable. So she could be in the past, she could be in the present, she could stop time, she could manipulate all the elements because they don't exist. It's just like a program that you can access. Once you get out of the system itself, you gain control over it. It's like you become the programmer at the same time that you are inside the game, so you can do whatever you want. It's God mode, basically, right? And this is a very short movie from Luke Benson, if people didn't watch it. It even has Morgan Freeman. Sorry,
are you showing it?
No, but if you can, I can look for it.
It's a great allegory of our reality, right? And I would add to that, I put it in this way: if you're not training, you're being trained, and we are often not using our mind. We are having our minds geared in certain ways, right? Which is essentially the Hegelian what is known as the Hegelian dialectic, which I point out Hegel himself later would say is a lifeless schema. And in fact, it's a triad that people use normally in relation to problem, reaction, solution. Not to refute this triad. It is a thing.
Let me just say, Atlas, I put it in the chat because if I put video, I will lose my streaming. It doesn't allow me to.
Oh, got it.
So go ahead, Ethan. Sorry for interrupting.
No, thank you. So in relation to the original kind of triad thesis that Hegel is related to, it was more, and effectively the same thing, but it was more thesis, antithesis, and there's that first duality, and synthesis, right? And this is the triad that let's pause here. Go ahead, Moses.
What happened? What did you do to my stomach?
What's going on? You've merely slipped a little package into your lower tummy, and you're going to transport something very special to us.
Light.
Hey! You speak English?
No.
You speak English?
Yes.
Take me to the hospital now.
Life.
Somebody put a bag of drugs inside me. I need you to take it out. It's leaking.
It is estimated most human beings only use 10% of the brain's capacity. Imagine if we could access 100%. Interesting things begin to happen. Yes?
Professor Norman, my name's Lucy. I just read all your research on the human brain. It's a little rudimentary, but you're on the right track.
Thank you.
I have access to 28% of my cerebral capacity. I can feel every living thing.
Since when did you start writing Chinese?
Since an hour ago.
What happens when she reaches 100%? I have no idea. All this knowledge, you can unlock secrets that go beyond our universe. I'm not even sure that mankind is ready for it.
It's like all things that make me human are fading away.
The worst freaking state to live in right now.
Oh, we didn't heard what's the worst state. It's planet Earth.
Oh, it's Iowa. It's Iowa.
So I have seen that movie. That is a fantastic film. And yeah, the potential that just really hits it on the nose.
And it's
Right.
light.
Well-
You see the beginning, all is light. She becomes light. In light.
Right.
And one of the things that I noted it's important is once you get to this state of understanding of reality, life stops being valued because there is an understanding that it doesn't exist. It is part of the all. Either you are alive or not, you're still there. It's like our lack of respect. I try to be as good as a player in an open world as I am in life. I try to treat people correctly. I'm not shooting everybody. Most. I know that majority, probably more than 60% of people go into games like GTA 5 or Red Dead Redemption and so on, and they kill everybody. They spend hours just sniping NPCs left and right. Why? Because they have this understanding that it doesn't matter. Because it isn't real. There's all projections of reality, right? So because everything that exists in another place, they can always be put there again. At the time you load the game, they will be there again. It doesn't matter. So I think that's what Luke Besson, when he created this, is getting to that point. That is, she understands that. Do you speak English? No. He kills the guy. It doesn't matter because it's all like a simulation. The real thing is not there.
Right.
And at the end of the movie, she becomes that singularity.
Right. It's the whole idea of when man becomes God, there's nothing that will hold him back, and so there's no responsibility or whatever. And it's like, is that really how we got here? Is that what we're thinking about ourselves? Because it seems the opposite is true. Maybe there have been times in history where they've put brakes on stuff within the human genome.
You've seen her change the color of her hair, change the color of her eyes,
right?
Increasing fingers in the hand, manipulating her own DNA and REN at will, instantaneously as anything else.
Right. If you think about telekinesis in that way, like maybe it is possible to have an effect on your own DNA using your mental capacities to change stuff. And so, everybody thinks about macro level telekinesis. What if you could actually master telekinesis on a micro level? Isn't that actually way more powerful if you think about it.
And I think that is the secret to immortality. Is the focus not on external things, but in your own body. To control your own body. And if you go to science, you go to Bruce Lipton. And although he failed to follow his own teachings and his own findings because he's getting old, very old, he proved many years ago that we have the ability to influence our genes. And he was not coming from a spiritual world, he was coming from a biological research, right? Because he was wondering, why do cells decay? Why do cells age? Why do we age? Right? It's belief. That's why he call it the biology of belief. That's what the video you have to look for on YouTube from Bruce Lipton. It's all about belief. And I keep saying this and people think I'm mad. We are brought to believe since birth that all things wither and die, that we are supposed to go to an old age and die because we keep seeing everybody doing it and we think it's an escapable reality, right? And I don't think it's necessarily true. I think it's the same way that now we know that kids are seeing the world with their eyes veiled. It's not that far-fetched to imagine that we can control our body because the information is there. And science, as we talk in this show, keeps saying that we have all of these mechanisms inside us. They are somehow suppressed or inoperational, but we can activate it. Wow. Headless, you were saying that use our mental capacity to go beyond those blocks. I would say use your real self. Use your interface to tell that to your body instead of using your brain, because we are not in the brain. We are not.
I got this written down. So this is from that other trailer. I basically said, enlighten yourself through the acceptance of more light. The best way to accept more light is to believe you are capable of accepting more light. Every single nerve is capable of accepting more light. So if you can get into that mindset, if you can meditate on that, who knows? We might be able to start perceiving things from a much different perception, and that could be a evolved way of seeing the world. You know, the mind sight and all these other things, they don't take into effect. Basically, we have a brain all over our skin. Our entire bodies are not only, you know, visually based cells, but take into effect the electromagnetic spectrum as well. So if you believe you can take in these different forms of light and maybe you can perceive how that's affecting the world around you, who knows?
Yeah, and I think there's more than one way to do it. For instance, you both are aware of that lady that showed that she could do telekinesis, but she shows that he's doing a lot of effort to do. It's like stimulating for her to do this. And this is from the 80s, I believe. There's a lot of footage of her. She was studied by real academics and universities, and she could actually do these things, but these things were killing her. Literally, right? Why? I think that because she was doing it the wrong way.
In her belief system, because she believed that.
She was doing it because she thought she had to strain herself in order to produce that kind of energy. That's how she got to it. She got the results. She could create fire. She could move objects. And this has been, again, studied. I can't remember her name right now, but she's pretty famous in these circles. And completely ignored for many years since she died.
And to that point of the relationship between the psychic and the politic, the way that institutions would and do, and people talk about with the Hegelian dialectic, the way they use it is based on the assumptions of how we believe and how we perceive. That's the only way that they can use it successfully. They do, and not that they don't. They being a multitude of forces, corporate and government and religious. But there is, in that sense, I believe that's why he called this triad. That's why Hegel called ultimately this triad of thesis, antithesis, synthesis, a lifeless schema, is because it doesn't include what I think is a really important fourth attribute and brings it life, nullisis. And that's letting things go and not being, corruptible by the belief systems that they're playing on, psychically, physically, and politically, as we've kind of touched on.
Well, you can imagine how hard it would be to control a world, an entire planet for that matter.
I can't imagine wanting to, but yeah, I can imagine
if we all had these systems activated.
Right.
I at this moment, I could reach to you and slap you in the forehead, right? Just because I wanted to. Right.
Yeah. Well, and even more simple than that, the fact that we could be so intuitive as to understand the institutional lies that are keeping us down. That is enough to, paradigm the whole situation. As soon as we start to realize how we've been lied to, us in the USA, everyone in Russia, everyone there and here and everywhere, it doesn't matter. We've all been lied to, right? So when we start realizing that, then we really get to the heart of the issue as to why they would keep it away from us.
If we were all gods, they had to be something above,
or not even gods, just intuitive.
In conception, I'm not saying actual gods, but in conception of capabilities, right? So there would have to be something higher in order to control us. You see my point? So that's why I think we first have, and we look to the ancient civilizations that we know. We first had the god kings, that they actually were gods ruling, and then we transitioned to the sons of the gods ruling, and then we transitioned to merely the servers or the servants of the gods ruling. This level of capacities is reduced and reduced and reduced because humans are being reduced themselves.
Right. Well, if you track back throughout the ancient world, the progression of these mythologies, you don't really get the heavy moralizations until the late classical period, right? So, from the 300s onward, religion became about, scolding and trying to mold people into these things. Before that, it was basically, these guys are fucking awesome. Isn't this kind of really cool what we're talking about here? And don't do these things, but at the same time, like, this is what you can be. It's far more hopeful, even in bloody battles and such. I mean, they actually see value in the world more so than a tale to try and put people in line and control them.
Sure, because if you limit the majority and give power to just a few, the majority will follow the few that have the power because they believe they are superior. Right? The story of Christ is very similar. Christ can be placed in the position that Lucy is in that film. He has the ability to create bread from nothing, to transform water into wine, because it's all a program. It's all manipulated. The elements and the periodic table is at your service. It's not something that is there objectively. It's something that you can interact with, right? Even bringing Lazarus, bringing people from the dead, it doesn't matter because it's all a construct. And if you are outside of this construct at the same time that you are in, you can do whatever you want around you. And we follow those people because we think that they are superior to us in somehow, and how they reach it. It's the same thing with Siddhartha Gautama, that people followed him because he had achieved something that they didn't. He had a capacity that they didn't. It happens with every single guru. So this is level by level. It's like the president is this, and the minister is that, and the secretary is that, and so on. We all are functioning through these scales of who is above who, right? And there is a following through all of that hierarchy. So that's how I think they build the world, from that top of the God directly interacting with humans until the point that we are now.
Well, I don't think we give enough credit to bread when it comes to the type of mind control that it produced using crazy people. Do you know about gluten madness? About the effects on society that gluten has. So yeah, the normal levels that we think of schizophrenia in society is between like 2 to 4%. Like 2 to 4% of society is it's 0.02 to 0.04% of society is schizophrenic, right? But that's just under bread. If you get rid of the bread, they've gone to Southeast Asia and they've seen these societies without the grains. They found that the actual normal
or
level
without gluten, right? Because they really are big on rice.
Right, but they don't have
Not
it. This
gluten.
is like
Not gluten. Excuse me, yeah.
societies, right? So if you look at their levels, it's 0.0 like 4. Like they only found 2 people in all of Southeast Asia that had schizophrenia, right? And that's a lot. And they didn't have anything for many years. And so back in the 1850s, they're like, what is this that's causing this mass rash of insanity in our people? And it turns out it's bread. So if you actually get rid of the bread, all the gluten intolerances and all of the chemicals that are actually designed in the wheat grain to harm predators no longer attacks your gut and no longer attacks your brain. So it literally makes you insane, and we push it on people. It's funny in the Bible,
not to mention
bread thousands of times. It's bread. They were the bread people, and it really doesn't take much to realize.
If I'm not mistaken, wheat is one of the genetically modified organisms that is out there in large, as well as corn, and so it's got all this Roundup on it, essentially. And there's another word, conventional. That is the opposite. The conventional is organic, right? The convention is using crap and everything around you, not the pollutants and chemicals.
Have you heard the story about the gauchos in South America that had the diseases that the world sees? They didn't have any of that, and so the tests that they were done, the biggest and probably the biggest difference that they found is they only eat meat, beef. That's all they ate, all of it. And so the guy said, but the scientists and the medics that were with them say, but you need the vegetables. And they said, no, the cows eat the vegetables. You eat the meat.
That's the perfect.
They didn't have tooth decay, tuberculosis, none of those diseases that were affecting people in the 70s, 80s. I can't remember exactly when this was done, but it's not a recent thing. They had nothing. The tooths were perfect until old life. They don't have they didn't die of disease, but of old age. And they only eat meat, nothing more, just meat, right? And I didn't forget it because I'm going to repeat it when the guy said, but you need your vegetables, you need those elements. And he said, no, the cows eat the vegetables, we eat the cows because they process it into a meat that we can process, into a food that we can process. So we eat the meat of the cows and they eat the rest, right? So and I think it links with what you were saying. Food is important, right? Although taking the risk of we're alive, so it's hard to banish. Now they're doing it with vaccines. They are not relying on food anymore. They decided to vaccinate the whole world with something that will further and accelerate the process. Not only to say that it will weed those that have predispositions to have serious health problems. And
right. I mean, that was my kind of, thinking in long term, like that you are injected with something that changes your chemical construct and your biology. Is that not determinative in some evolutionary cycle? That was a big part of why I didn't get it. I wanted to mention one other thing about the analysis. There's the 4 aspects of arithmetic, right? 4 forms of arithmetic. The triad, 4 operations. Thank you. The triad is essentially the 3 without the fourth. So it's a lifeless schema, in the sense that, and out of the four, division is kind of the most distinct in this respect. If you multiply 0 times 0, you get 0. If you add 0 and 0, you get 0. If you take away 0 from 0, you get 0. If you divide 0 from 0, what do you get?
Let me guess.
Please.
It's 2.
You're right. There is no definitive answer. There is no definitive answer, and it is in alignment with that analysis. Just, it can be whatever your consciousness wants it to be. It's 0 divided by 0.
So everything multiplied or divided by the lowest number from 0 to 9 always gives the lowest number, that is 0. Everything multiplied or divided by the highest number, that is 9, always gives 9. And people are saying, oh, I know it doesn't, because 9 by 9 is 81. Yeah, 8 plus
It's
1.
9.
It's 9. So everything multiplied or divided by 9 will always be 9, and anything multiplied by 0 or divided by 0 divided by 0 or by any number, it's always 0. I never thought about it like that. It's very interesting.
And 0 divided by 0 itself is really like the magic, the undefined.
The second most predominant number. So this is very easy for people to do at home. You write 1 to 9 on a vertical column, and you write 1 to 9 in a horizontal column, right? And then you multiply the numbers and put the numbers in, right? You don't, for instance, again, 9 by 9, you don't write 81 because you know that 8 and 1 is 9, so you write the 9, right? And you'll find that the 9 will go like this diagonally from top to bottom, and the 0 will go like this from all the numbers in both sides, right? So you have a 9 and you have zeros. The second most predominant number is 6, which I find also curious.
That is neat.
Yeah, it's the second most predominant number. It's the 0, the 9, and the 6. I don't know what significance that has, but I think it's probably either mathematics is really connected to our fabric of reality, and therefore these are the sequences most used to create this reality for some reason, or it's just a mathematical thing that it's just a coincidence. I don't know.
Oh, are you talking about Bedford's Law?
Probably. I don't know what that is.
All right. Well, let's do it. Let me give you a... So there's a problem with numbers, and that is that they have a pattern even when seemingly random. So, yeah, this is called Bedford's Law.
There is no chaos, just incapacity to resolve the mathematics.
Well, it's a number thing. I don't know if it's here we go.
You could look at the populations of all the countries in the world and look at the leading digits of all those. So, for example, if it was 1,000...
Sorry.
Well, this is Benford's Law, and it's about numbers, but it's about the leading digit. For example, you could look at the populations of all the countries in the world and look at the leading digits of all those. So, for example, if it was 1,269, then the leading digit in that case is the 1. Benford's Law works on a distribution of numbers if that distribution spans quite a few orders of magnitude. And the brilliant thing about populations of countries is it actually goes from tens up to billions. If you were to think about that, okay, what are the distribution of leading digits? So some of the populations will start with a 1, some will start with a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. And so there are 9 possible leading digits. And you might imagine that each one of those possible leading digits are equally likely to appear. So that's 1 in 9, 11%. And if I was to plot that on a graph, you might expect that to fluctuate around 11%. So it's going to sort of, go like that. So what actually happens is that a third of the time, that's up here, right? A third of the time, the number you choose will start with a 1. And it will hardly ever start with a 9. So 9's kind of like down here, you know, tiny number. And then you get this brilliant curve that goes up like that. Isn't that crazy?
I know you talk about this sometimes in talks and things you do. What's the reaction to that normally when you tell people this?
The reaction, okay, the noise is sort of like this. And there's a certain amount of disbelief sometimes as well. The way we do it actually in the show is that we get people to tweet numbers to us. So we're collecting numbers, and I try to give them ideas. So maybe like take the distance from the venue to where they live and convert that into some strange units or something like that. The interesting thing is, like I was saying, it works so long as the distribution you're choosing from spans loads of orders of magnitude. But if you're picking numbers from lots of different distributions, the individual distributions don't have to span lots of orders of magnitude. The sort of the meta distribution of individual things picked from different distributions follows Benford's law anyway. So it works brilliantly well.
What clump of numbers will this not work for?
Human height in meters. So humans are between 1
It
meter.
comes down to the units.
So it doesn't work for that. You get you get a massive load around there, and no one's 9 meters tall. Anything that has that kind of short distribution, that it doesn't work for. But it does work for several distributions put together that don't necessarily individually follow the rules. So I did it for populations. I did it for areas of countries in kilometers squared. If you take one number and convert it to loads of different units, that will tend to follow Benford's law as well. You can do it for the Financial Times. So look at all the numbers on the front cover of the Financial Times. They will tend to follow Benford's law as well.
Just a quick interjection, you can also apply this to the number of times you watch Numberphile videos or leave comments underneath. More information at the end of the video.
So
all right, so what he's not saying. Now, what he's not saying is even more important than what he is saying. But what he's not saying is if the number doesn't go along with Benford's law, you can pretty much be sure that somebody's making it up.
Wow.
So you can apply Benford's law to any number you're given from any person, and you can see whether or not it applies to that law. And if it doesn't, guess what? There's a high likelihood that person is lying to you.
So when applied to reality, Benford's law applies. When applied
reality under big units,
you
got to have big units. That's your big distribution.
When applied directly to pure mathematics, it ceases to exist. It becomes the 9 and the 0 that are the most prevalent. So they are using a transition of this numerology, of these numbers that we are talking about. And
it has to do with vision.
Yeah.
It has to do with vision. Think about it. So Benford's law is outside, and then the mathematics you're talking about, basically it has to be done inside the mind, right? It's not, right. So this is all the lower sort of the conceptual world. There's a separation, because we should all know Benford's law, right? We should all know that.
Well, the data is so powerful. That's just an example of how powerful data is, right? You put that together like that, it just becomes almost a way to bust people for lying. Like,
do you know who uses Benford's law more than anybody else and doesn't want anybody talking about it?
US government.
The IRS, because they can just apply Benford's law to any reported income and know immediately who's embezzling.
What?
Yes.
Wow. That's
if it doesn't start by a 1, there's something funky in here.
Right. Well, it's not just the 1. It's that whole line graph goes back. The more numbers you have in the sequence, the more Benford's law applies to it. So that's what you're talking about, really. So when the big numbers come out, that's when you know if somebody's lying or not, because each one of those positions has a likelihood of where it's going to be on that number line. So
I'm very curious to know if he's looking, for instance, on that newspaper numbers, he's using the first number, right? I'm very curious to know what would be the sum of all of those numbers. It's very easy to do with AI. The sum of all of those numbers into one number. What is the final number and that keeps appearing, right? And in there, I'm sure that we'll return to either the 6 or the 9 as the predominant numbers. So there is a matrix within a matrix, and they give different values according to the perspective of the person observing that reality. So we are programmed to see the Bod's law, so that the ones, while the whole matrix of the thing is built by the 0s and the 9s and the 6 and so on and so forth.
What are the units? We haven't even discovered what the basic units are.
Yes.
That's the point. We don't even know what we're creating units, and the bigger units, the more it applies to Bedford's law. But what does that mean?
Yeah,
in the end, we don't know what the basics of atomic physics are. I mean, we can kind of tell that there's something there.
We are quantifying the unquantifiable,
right?
Basically. So we are trying once more. This is coming back to the sand pillars of physics. We are once more creating assumptions that then create laws based on elements that are pure assumptions or mere coincidence. That doesn't represent reality itself. It's just a way that we find that it's close enough so that we consider them correct because they correlate with what we see. That doesn't mean that they are exact.
Right. The word matter could be an arbitrary human distinction of units that doesn't exist in reality.
Exactly.
You know, it reminds me of the Pareto principle. And this is kind of an engaging an idea that also you would think it would be as he pointed out in his graph presentation of things are going to be equal around 11% across the board. The Pareto principle started by a farming organization finding out that their yield was basically 80-20. 80% of their productivity came from about 20% of their plants. No, it shouldn't be that way, right? It shouldn't be this peak or relative thing. Everything should kind of produce equally. No, it doesn't work like that. With businesses too, 80% of their business comes from 20% of their customers, 20% of the calendar year. The 80-20 rule can really kind of play out in a lot of different manners. I think too, in regards to like meditative movement, that could be helpful towards engaging a positive biosphere, positive chemical influences to, make things activate when they should. I think 80% of those type of benefits come from 20% of the simplest movements and postures and so on. It's a matter of doing them with the right intention, I suppose. But
or the right belief. Is it intention or is belief? Does the movement have to be perfect, or you have to believe that you are doing it perfectly?
It is. You are right. It is whatever you think. Actually, right? It is. Is it perfect that you did it on that day? Then yeah, you got the benefit. Did you? And later on, as your practice develops, you might have a different, perspective. But I think it's all internal. It's whatever the person decides is correct is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, you are showing me the exact movement that you were shown, and that works. That that works for you, right? And it worked for your master, and so on and so forth. But none of you are doing exact the same movement. You are replicating to the best of your ability as your master was replicating, but he believes that that technique and that sequence is the one that works because it works, right? But the next person that comes and executes it will execute it slightly different. So if it was a matter of perfection, it would never work. It's a matter
you're totally right, but I even mean more simple movements than that. Right, more simple than the complexity of a form practice, even like arm swinging, and like embodying what are complex principles and what are many principles into walking, But you're right. You're absolutely right. But I just mean that even more simple than that is where the 80% is probably rooted.
This leads into our forms of belief that doesn't require for us to know what's the source and its true meaning, because we are taught in a certain way to accept instead to understand things. This is one example that I saw this week. I don't know if it's real, but it makes sense. Apparently, there was more than one Battle of Agincourt, and at a certain point, the Brits were fighting the English, and this is by the time of bow and arrow, and the French considered that they were going to win, convinced that they were going to win to the British. They told them, after we won, we are going to cut your middle finger so that you could never throw an arrow again. But the British won. And so what happened at the end of the battle is all of these arrows guys put themselves into line to the retreating French and did this to them without saying a word, which means we keep our fingers. Right? Of course, it can be translated to "fuck you," right? But it's we still have our fingers. But today we use it and see people using it either in the road or whatever with a completely different connotation. Context. The context has changed radically, right?
Context matters.
I heard it was the two fingers.
Oh, it is? I heard the middle finger. They were cutting the middle finger so they could never show a bow again.
No, because over in England, it's like this.
Yeah.
That's what they do over there. So, yeah, it's the same idea, but I think it all goes back to ancient Rome. So they had the phallus, right? And then they had the fig. So they had two different genders for, how they flip people off.
Well, the Italians today does this.
Pussy.
For the Italians today, it's like this. So,
I don't know what that means.
It's basically the same. The thing is, it is what we are considering to be the meaning.
Right.
It's completely different from the original context, and it still works. And I'm just trying to correlate this with science, because we are getting results that are parallel and they seem to work as results to what we see in reality. Although how they are created has nothing to do with reality itself. It's a completely artificial way to represent something that is in nature completely different. It's just that our way to represent it and explain it fits with the model that we experience, although it isn't the model itself, right? And that on itself limits us to get the answers of the meaning of life, or what we're doing here, or does the universe have an end? Because it obviously has to have an end. It has to be inside something, and that something has to be inside something, because you cannot have something existing without being in some kind of medium, right? So
hermetically sealed.
If they want us to believe that each universe is a bubble, oblongated bubble expanding by the inertia of its initial birth, then it has to be inside something. But this is the point where our brains or our capacity to understand things starts to fail because of the scale. Even if we use the methods that you normally use to bring reality into perception, that is numbers, the numbers get so enormous that we lose any kind of understanding of what they mean. Right?
So, when do numbers become light?
When you bring them into reality by imagining them, or just putting them into paper, or electrical.
What about you've got fiber optics, right? Numbers is light. Maybe the whole system is numbers is light.
Maybe the whole system.
I've been wanting to mention this, if it's okay. This is totally outside of the conversation, but pertinent to something, Edlis, I know you're interested in, and me too. the fiber optic cables, and Ricardo, I'm sure you're interested too, but one of the predictions of the Hopi we've touched on before is that towards the end times, the world would be covered with the spider web. And you look at like they used to talk about it being the World Wide Web or the telephone poles. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. But the now there's the fields of drones in Ukraine, which leave behind fiber optic cables, which are such a mess. Not only animals are getting tangled in them, but even the soldiers, variously, they're so thick across the fields there that it's like a spider's web of fiber optic cables.
That are not biodegradable, I presume.
Oh God, they're got to be such a mess. I would assume they're just birds are making nests out of them.
It's an electronics battlefield now because not only do they jam each other's frequencies, but they actually have to do a lot of fly-by-wire stuff. So there is
right. That's
wire
what they did. The fiber optics. They that
Hellfire. All right, Hellfire missiles are fly-by-wire, so they leave behind a massive
nightmare.
Right.
And now they're also even changing further with the AI that do not have wires, but are once they are intercepted by a jamming over.
Everything has to be wired because they have jammers. All of these things can get jammed using radio.
Not the AI though, right?
The AI is easily. I mean, like, look, you can't have the thing fully autonomous yet. They're trying.
I heard they got them in Ukraine. They got them that they're part AI. They take over at AI on certain pre-recognized target material, and only after being jammed. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but if we don't, for instance, one of the matters that is in law that stage 4 or stage 5 of autonomous vehicles have to overcome is this simple question. That is, when in danger, for instance, a car is driving himself through the highway and for some reason there is an animal or a children in the road ahead. So the car has to decide to kill the passenger or to kill the children. Because if he swirls, he'll hit something and kill the passenger. If he continues, he saves the passenger but kills whatever he's going to hit on. And computers cannot go beyond this because humans don't know the answer. Because
Ashish had like a long segment on that. So guys, go back and watch that one. It's amazing. Go ahead. Keep going.
So because we don't have the morality to decide, we cannot compute the machine to decide. So what they're trying to do is to make the machine decide and then relate to what the machine is deciding and then agreeing with it or not. And because we are not managing to pass from this point, self-driven vehicles are being delayed because this law cannot be overcome, because there is no solution for this. So they're trying to make it completely random, right? So one time you go in the car and the car decides to kill you, and the other time you go in the car and the car decides to kill whatever is in front of you. And so it becomes the laws of probability, and they clean their hands. This is the way they are trying to escape this, is by washing their hands like pilots. Pilot did. It's like, it will be a matter of calculation from the system to determine which one has the most probability of surviving. And so the machine is now deciding who lives and who dies. And this is extremely problematic in terms of some of the laws that are now effective that they cannot overthrow.
Well, I mean, they're using AI in the worst possible way to man drones and kill people. So it's
how does the drone knows who's the foe and who's the friend?
Do they really even care? Because it's not going to be the people who put the AI on the battlefield who are going to be dying because of the AI on the battlefield. Does it really matter to them?
You know what this remembers me? There was this video of the first light suit to control a robot. So you dress a light suit and you control a robot, and they are using it to fight, right? And so when they were in the trials of this system, this guy that was making the movements like the guy that this Golem did, it's exactly the same thing, but it's being reproduced by a bipedal robot. He kicked himself into the nuts because the robot doesn't follow exactly the same thing. Again, the Tai Chi movements are not exactly always the same.
Right.
By the time he gives this kick into the air, the robot was next to him and kicked him in the nuts. So the brilliant thing of this video is that when the guy goes down, crutch grabbing his nuts because he was just kicked in the nuts by himself, the robot does exactly the same thing. So there are these two individuals in the ring clutching to their meat body. Because
If I would give them another year for the average robot to become indestructible by a human in a fight, the way that they can rotate is totally different than a human, and the capacity for them to move is like.
Well, we'll need Jedis.
Yeah. Well, you need a sword would work. Yeah, a sword would do it.
Not only the sword, we need Jedis, which means
they're going to shoot better than us on every possible imaginable level. So, I mean, the capacity for their violence is going to be so much greater than anything.
Yeah. No, the way they like. I was watching this presentation of a recent one where they can just turn their hips 180 and start walking backwards and forwards, and their heads and their shoulders. Everything goes 360 or 720, however many degrees you want.
But tell me, are they really going to introduce this into battlefields?
I'm just saying.
I think not.
I'm just.
This is why, because wars serve purposes of agendas.
Good choice. Good.
And if they eliminate the human factor, they are not eliminating life. And if they are not eliminating life, there is no great value to the agenda. At least to the agendas that they have right now.
That's a horrible but accurate thought.
We keep talking about optical AI systems, right? And if you put a optical AI system inside of a crow's nest with a 50 caliber rifle as a sniper,
that's all you need.
It will hit everything miles away. Right, it's got all that stuff calculated down to it won't miss, and
they're already doing it. They have
now. You won't get tired.
They have now $1 million project in Ukraine of this kind of a super machine gun that can be placed in the back of any car. They just open the gate, and it autonomously detects and destroys drones. There's no one controlling it. There is no interface panel to work with it. You just turn it on, and he will detect drones and will shoot them with accuracy. Right? So they're already doing it. The problem is anything that flies nearby will going to be destroyed because there's no way to differentiate what is ours and what is theirs. It's flying and moving. It goes away.
There's already been mechanical in like ground forces, autonomous ground vehicle that raided a trench, or group anyway of humans, just the vehicles. Sure, I think it had drone help, air drones too. So they're literally practicing for the Terminator War there.
They were doing. They had.
It's already. This is Terminator War 1.0.
Yeah.
China's already on Terminator War 3.0.
Yeah.
China's already there. We lost that next Terminator phase by 2 because guess what? We're using LiDAR.
Right.
No, I'm serious. This is
I got to the point in the video where Ashish.
Yeah.
Is that his name? I want to make sure I got it right. Where he mentions how there's one company in the U.S. that's doing the the visual computer, and there's 100, 200 in China. Like, oh wow,
I saw that.
It seems like they're paid off to pursue LiDAR for some reason. It seems. I'm sure it's a confusion.
they are Morlocks, right? They're in
Warlocks,
the cave.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't have vision. Like if you're going to put all the symbols in place, like they have the blinders on, they think they're superior. They don't need to see anything else. All they have is that one frequency, and that's all they need.
Tell me, is that really what it is, or it's because, as we had talked before, it doesn't matter?
Billions in contracts to this stuff that doesn't work.
Exactly. So if someone is making money from it, it doesn't matter because it's just another illusion in society. It's just a machine to make money.
Well, the very real consequences is that China is going to beat us in a war. So that's the very real consequences of this being obsessed with this one form of technology for 30 years that hasn't worked. That's the real consequence. And I love it. It's like, well, what are you going to do? These guys have beaten us already in the next generation AI war. So congratulations, guys. You don't even know what's coming.
But I think that's been happening for more than 20 years. The problem is we don't get what Chinese are developing. Because I remember when the Americans launched their very advanced new fighter jets, China had already better fighter jets that can even fly by themselves and make decisions to save the pilots, for instance.
Why would they let us know about that stuff?
Sure.
Well, the obsessive nature of jet production is really interesting. Is like how we look back in past. It's like national art. Like, you know, what does a nation produce? A car and a jet. The U.S. requirements for the jet components to only be made in the United States go to completely overhauling every plane because they found one magnet was sourced in Asia. So there is an obsessive, but I was just going to say the United States has made hundreds of them. China supposedly is only made like a handful of their.
Right. Well, how do you protect a nation from, let's say, tiny drones that have the capacity to sabotage?
And the current president wants to build a battleship, a great big battleship, and that's not
You're
even
never going to build anything ever again.
Yeah,
you can have tiny drones that sabotage shit.
Yeah.
Wars.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
This is
go big.
This is hard to grasp, but wars are only real to those in the battlefield.
Right.
Apart from that, they are complete fictions only to serve a purpose or multiple purposes. Because that's why we don't have World War III. That's why we are not in war with Russia. That's why we are not in war with China. Because these people, although they have some level of autonomy, they are all working for the same goals. They might disagree here and there, but they always are forced to agree at some point without reaching the breaking point because they are all serving the same powers that be. And the powers that be doesn't want the world destroyed because that doesn't serve them.
Parasitism, right. So I don't think it's going to be a very long war if China has the upper hand in AI and they can put it into very tiny things that are all networked together. It's going to be over in a matter of days if we ever want to go up against them.
Well, I wonder,
it's a distraction.
If
they're already in charge.
If they can create all of those holographic images, not the AI created ones, but the real ones, those holographic images in the sky, how hard it is to take a small disguised vessel into the US, right? And launch thousands and thousands and thousands of drones directly into the White House and kill.
Right. Who knows where they came from? Who did it?
It doesn't happen because there's no interest.
Too militaristically. All they have to do is send everybody a package from Amazon. Then they come out and they do their thing. That's all you need is one package. It shows up on the doorstep and then it does its own thing. It's completely autonomous.
You mentioned earlier, Ricardo, how the robots wouldn't really do the double kind of work that a regular war does, in the sense that it's really to a war on the internal as well. Like the Russian war on Ukraine, it's also a Russian war on Russia. getting rid of the undesirables from prison, the poor, this and that, and so
it's serving both countries. I assure you,
purposes that are
serving both
internal
countries.
and external. Internal and external is all I wanted to point out.
I just think that maybe we haven't come to the point of fully realizing the amount of ransom money we're going to pay out, because that's basically what we're looking at. Is now you can hack the planet, and if you can hack the planet, you can extort the planet, and if you can extort the planet, it's going to happen in ways like banking. It's going to happen in ways like finance and
internal knowledge of investment opportunity, which apparently is being rampant.
You're going to see a lot more massive transfers of wealth from the lower class up to the upper class because they're all being blackmailed, and it's a blackmail economy, right? So the entire thing is based around, again, what we find over and over again, blackmail. They're using it on everybody. It's all the people in power. It's not just a African thing. It's an everybody thing. And that's how they maintained it for centuries.
There are no chains in their feet, but they are not free.
Right?
Yeah, right. I know it's getting towards late in the show, but I wonder maybe we haven't done if you guys have any predictions for the coming year.
I can't give you a prediction for the coming year, but I would like to leave this what I consider to be a bombshell. That is, the way things are progressing, the only way they implement, if this is actually their ultimate goal, because if it is, I think they could achieve it way long ago. But if the solution that they are going to try now is a unified earth with a unified coin, with a unified social system, with a unified medical system, with a unified food system, if we are progressing to that, the only way the masses accept it is the same way that they accepted all of the restrictions implemented after 9/11, for instance. And that is by creating a huge convulsion. Now, in order to put everybody accepting a world government and all its implications, that in the end could be positive if it is used to better mankind. But let's imagine, in order to accept that, what they have to create is total social chaos. We have to have a collapse of the money. Money has to be collapsed in order for them to implement their new system. The social systems have to be collapsed in order for them to implement the new system. So either they're going to create a major war or a simple cyber attack that destroys everything.
Or not both.
Yeah, sorry, exactly. So what I mean is something must happen to accelerate this process. And the only reason they would have to accelerate this process if we are going to really have an event in the next 20, 30 years that is natural. So if there is something natural that is going to come up that no one knows exactly how it's going to be, if it is just an EMP-like system that it's the same as total destruction because without electricity, billions and billions will die, or is there going to be created by the systems themselves, like in total chaos, like this introduction of immigrants everywhere? There's structural chaos that is being caused slow by, because this process can take 10 generations. In 10 generations, they will achieve it. But if they have to accelerate it,
more likely in all cases, because here's what's going to happen, right? You can attack the infrastructure of a country using the internet now, using these tools that have been developed over the past 20, 30 years. You can completely destroy a nation's infrastructure. And when that happens, only the capital city and only the government will come back online, and everybody else will be screwed for very, very long periods of time. We are in a competency crisis. They are not going to do anything for the rest of the people as long as they can take care of themselves, right? That's going to create an animus all over the planet because these people have been screwing us for millennia. Yeah. And as soon as the lights go out and we realize, hey, there's nobody coming to save you, there's no resources, all of the money is shut down, all of that stuff is shut off, the only people who will be taken care of is the people inside of that perimeter. It's going to create a lot more chaos than you've seen so far. I mean, if you look at what's happened with COVID, this is going to be like COVID on steroids. So if they have that massive blackout and we see what they really care about and what they're willing to do to people who have a problem with it, it's going to be civil war in most cases. I don't think China or whoever's behind a massive blackout, because it would benefit all of these people to have that happen. I mean,
it will be neighbor against neighbor. If you have water and I don't, I want your water. You have food and I don't, I want your food.
It's going to be a fire sale of all the world's resources. The last person holding the bag is going to get all of the debt, and the first person to snatch everything up is going to get all of the world's wealth. It's just like all these other big land grabs and everything else throughout all of history, except on a much more massive scale. And we've seen all of these frauds are just ramping up. You know, COVID was the biggest upward transfer of wealth. Why wouldn't that happen again? These things are cyclical. And right now, people are gearing up for the biggest transfer you've ever seen thus far.
I don't know if you've seen this university that published a paper on how the mRNA vaccines, I might not be saying it correctly,
mRNA,
were accelerating cancer growth in joints and things like that. And he produced a paper. That university came publicly saying that inexplicably they got hacked and the whole system was erased. Whoever entered it deleted the whole thing. So all they have is what they have written, right?
Oh, it's just so convenient.
It just happened, right? So
those are the kind of blinders that march everybody into this place, right? Is they could have easily said no. They could have easily made it stop, but they went along with it. Every single time they go along with it. Any time it's a person in power and they have the choice between picking power or picking the little guy, they've always gone with the person in power. That's just been the general thesis. So once you've dumbed a society down enough to where they have no foresight and the only thing they can think about is their next meal, they're not going to have the courage to stop the type of competency crisis we have in our country right now, which is the dumbest people have the most amount of power over us right now.
Look,
it's a kakistocracy.
Are we supposed to believe that the people that send Americans to Afghanistan to train what's their name? The Talibans.
Mujahideen?
To train the Talibans to fight the Russians with American weapons, with American teachings, they are only thinking on defeating the Russians, or they are already powering up a force that would then be used to terrorize the world in order to move forward with their agendas. So are their plans limited to just a moment and then say, sorry, we fucked up? Or are they already thinking everything ahead of time?
You're not thinking in terms of management, right? So upper management might be thinking about, hey, we can use this group of terrorists. And in fact, let's get a couple of people to create some contacts over there. While the really dumb people are the ones giving the money to this,
Sure.
right? So our politicians, they're just the middlemen between our money and the terrorists. They don't know any better. They're just doing as they're told.
What is the most famous, worst movie of all time? You don't know?
I don't know.
Rambo 3.
Rambo 3.
I'm serious. You know why? Because it's the movie he wrote to document it was the Americans that trained the Taliban to fight the Russians.
Really?
Yes. So it has been destroyed from the moment it hit the cinemas. And every single important magazine or every single important critic destroyed the movie from top down so that people don't even watch it. It's like it's a waste of time. It's a terrible movie, I agree, right? But is it historically correct? Although they put this invincible individual there, right? But it's the reason why they cut it completely. Like, it's never watch this movie. This is the worst thing ever made in cinema history, because it's the movie that shows the Americans were there training the Taliban.
So awful.
And it was only made because the money was placed by Stallone, as usual.
It's a fact that when the U.S. forces first dropped into Afghanistan right after 9/11, not that that was necessarily the right thing to do, but they had Osama himself on the run over the mountains, I think, of Kandahar into Pakistan.
Or
And
so they say.
so the story goes. This is, I don't know if they say this too much. The story is that they had their winter gear. They were ready to go. I forget if it was the airborne or what group it was. Guys, I had this. Sorry, but it might have been the Marines. It might have been the Marines actually, and they had him. They were ready to go. They got called off. And they were all like, "What the fuck? What do you mean called off?" And they had him in the mountains. These guys not prepared for high altitude and on the run.
Who gave the first job
the force
to Bush Jr.? Who was the man who gave him the first job?
I don't know.
Bin Laden's father.
Which okay, yeah. Oil companies, Bin Laden's father. There you go. But
which were the only planes allowed to take off after 9/11 from the airports. The only planes allowed. Bin Laden's.
Sure. And many of them, dozens, I think. And so they had him on the run. What culminated that event? 20 years of war, the longest U.S. war in history, I believe, right? In Afghanistan. Let
me ask you guys a question. Is it wrong for an oil company to collude with an intelligence agency from the nation that you're in to help them out patriotically? Is that a bad thing?
I would say it depends, because is it bad if us three were to collude on something positive? No, it wouldn't be. But it seems generally that they collude on resource takeover through death. That's no good.
But they're not doing a very good job of it. I mean, I remember when George Bush was talking about all the oil coming out of Iraq. Iraq's the second biggest oil field in all of the world. And what did they do? They just bombed the refineries and they didn't ship out any oil.
Sure.
What was that about, guys?
I think again, to the idea that there's an internal war, it's to make us fucked inside and to F them over too, because by way of us making money on militarism adventure.
Okay,
right?
so what were they?
Maybe the oil isn't necessarily the plunder in and of itself. It's just the military adventurism.
So why are these tales of scientific teams to be shipped amid this chaos of war to get what? Because they were not there for the oil. That's obviously right. There were no weapons of mass destruction. That's obvious too, right? Wow. So even the tanks were made of paper. So what was they going to get from Iraq? What was there that they wanted so badly that they destroyed the guy that they placed in power, because that guy was placed in power previously by Americans, right? Because they served him at the time, and then when he stopped serving them, they decided to take him from there, as has happened so many times.
Russia just fell too, right? The first time that the U.S. went in, anyway, Russia had just fell. Iraq was largely armed with Russian equipment, right? I think when the first George Bush went in, I think that it was about, let's just see what happens. We want our gear to interact with their gear.
This is
unipolar world. It was a unipolar moment that got us over Vietnam syndrome.
Sure. This is a geopolitical game. For instance, when the Portuguese
what did Ben Shapiro say about Venezuela? It got America over their Iraq war syndrome.
Really? Oh God!
Yeah, that's what he said about it. Oh, you want to see it?
It's not good.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, you put that when Portugal was fighting to maintain the colonies in Africa, Angola, Guinea, Mozambique, the Americans and the Russians were both financing the rebels and giving them weapons to fight the Portuguese in trade immediately. So the war was still going on, and they were already offering them in trade of diamonds, of oil rights, so they can go into the countries.
Speaking of Vietnam, I had a veteran tell me of a situation that he himself experienced numerous times. And the first time, it left him baffled to where he had to share it with me. And this goes to the whole point of all the wars is maybe not necessarily the plunder of winning, right? Because wars aren't even won anymore, you know, in a sense. But he said that they were taking on these groups and they were trying to take out their logistics and all that, except for the Chevron trucks, bright yellow gas trucks coming through, bringing the Vietnamese gas. Well, why can't we shoot at what? We allow them to go in. They make their money. Giving the other side likely weapons and surely gasoline.
On a war that was provoked by the Americans.
On a total just useless war. The only use for it was making money, right? Because for every loss, there's a gain. Someone is gaining money.
Look, the Americans were already deployed, right? And nothing was going on. So
unfortunately, we have these convenient international laws that we like to follow sometimes. And one of those is that you can't cut off the energy supplies of the civilian population, which, yeah, it's going to end up in the hands of terrorists. But at the same time, they follow that very strategically, right? So anytime the laws of war seem to benefit the other guys and there's nothing we can do about it, our hands are tied, they go along with the laws of war. Anytime the laws of war don't go along with what we want, which is a protracted conflict to make a lot of money off of really stupid things, then we break them. And we go in and we kidnap people like Maduro and we, break international law up one side down the other. So anytime it comes to people making
where do you think is next, Edlis? You think Cuba is next?
I think so. I think what they're really after is Brazil, because if they could take down Brazil and put that back into the hands of the other guy, they'll be seen as heroes because legitimately the left screwed everything. Well, I think Brazil is, they wanted their guy, they had that. What was that right-wing guy that got booted out by the left-winger? Bolsonaro, yeah. Bolsonaro is sitting on, billions and billions of dollars worth of mineral rights, and they really want to get that stuff. And now he's in jail, and if they could get Brazil, they could actually fix American economy. So look, if this was all a method of going down to Brazil and actually fixing things, because Brazil is going to shit, like,
already
you've got to take out the entire red threat in South America. You can't just stop at Venezuela. This is ridiculous. If you even consider that as a win, you're a moron. But like, they've been down there illegally, and you can make the case politically very easily once you expose that this has been a network that's been going on this entire time. I mean, obviously they're communists. They work together. But if they can make that case and say, hey, look, we could stop the communism and give these people back their country, yeah. But if they can't, like, what are we doing? We're just screwing it up even worse. And look, they've got the FARC. Do you know about the FARC in Colombia?
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are ready to come in and just start causing chaos any day now, which is kind of what they want. So I want to go, this is how bureaucracies make money versus how a business makes money.
It reminds me
of Major. You aren't ready to stay dead. You don't know the rules of the game anymore.
Oh,
tell me about it. 8 years ago, this guy was on the hit list.
Budget cuts, dear. Congress blinded us overseas. I was forced to turn to any eyes and ears I could find, even if that meant recruiting the quote-unquote bad guys here.
Budget cuts? Is that what this is about? Operation Honeymoon. Fuck me. You're running a fundraiser.
Fundraiser? 1993. World Trade Center bombing, remember? During the trial, one of the bombers claimed the CIA had advanced knowledge. The diplomat who issued the terrorist visa was CIA. It's not unthinkable they paved the way for the bombing, purely to justify a budget increase.
You're telling me that you're going to fake some terrorist thing just to scare some money out of Congress?
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Hennessy, I have no idea how to fake killing 4,000 people. So we're just going to have to do it for real. Oh, blame it on the Muslims, naturally. Then I get my funding. Good night, old girl. Timothy, I'll be in chopper 1.
1997.
This is how I'd learn AI in 2026.
Did we watch that before? I don't know. That's one of my favorite clips. That's how they make their money. That's how bureaucracies make their money, is they fail forward. They have to keep failing to keep getting more money. It's everything having to do with what's going on in Minnesota right now. All of these places that are failing to get more money.
We can see it too if we look at it in microcosm, like say, look at it just in the drug war. A total failed even proposition to have a war on chemicals is what you're saying. So the whole idea is a failure. If we wanted to cure the drug problem, we would stop the war. Prohibition keeps the existence of a cartel, and engagement in prohibition keeps prices up. This is about it. And now if we look at the drug war in respect to essentially all wars, how it's essentially a way to keep prices up, that's what Orwell put forth too in A Stream of 1984, that destroying the equipment and the lives, that was all part of it. That was all part of the mechanism of war, to keep people down, not necessarily by the death alone, just by the restriction of resources, and to keep prices up.
Get this one, Ethan. So the drug war actually started with the war of Lawrence Fishbein and the what were they called? They were going up against the homeopathics, right, in the early 1910s.
Good point.
Right.
Good point.
So the Rockefeller-funded Fishbein went around and called all these people quacks, and then they had the FDA and all these brand new federal agencies come in there and start attacking them. Right.
And
so
the doctors, just to interject, the doctors were inclined to do so because they saw all these women that were homeopaths as a threat to their business and their education and all they've invested. And they were just these women. And
they went along with it.
And so they were advantageous to go along with it.
So
they created the AMA and all the rest of it went downhill. And now we're paying $3 billion a day to get killed by these medical.
To build on that, the AMA was solely initially created to take down homeopathy, not to heal human beings.
It was created. You know that they just found out. They just found out that by simply removing one of the elements or the proteins, I don't know, of the LSD complex, what do you call it, formula or whatever, by taking one of the elements, instead of giving you hallucinations, it rewires your brain. It goes into the dead zones and revives them. This was just published like this week or something like that. They done it in mice, of course, because they started always like that. But by taking that element, it removes the hallucinations, and what it does is revives part of your brain that are inactive. For instance. So in terms of drugs, if they want to maintain the control, they have to be very careful and specific of what they let out or not. Right? Because if you solve every single oncological patient in Portugal is worth to the system 300,000 euros. Every single one.
Yeah, that's a whole.
The medical companies pay the government 300,000 euros for each oncological patient. So obviously, every time you go to the doctor and say, "Oh, I'm feeling this," you'll say, "Oh, you have this for sure. Let's go to chemotherapy."
Nightmare.
So,
that I think happens a lot, and that's a whole other.
The ventilations on COVID.
Right,
they were receiving huge amounts of money for having someone on a ventilator. So obviously, everybody's going to the ventilators, although it actually kills you. It's scientific.
And
I'm not even talking about the vaccine. I'm talking the ventilator eventually kills you.
doctors themselves will admit that. If you go to a cardiovascular doctor about your bad toe, they're going to tell you that you need a heart transplant, right? Is the joke that doctors use, like, to illustrate that. Yeah, we really experience that a lot, and it's another example of the solution to drugs. The drug problem would be, of course, make it all legal, because then you don't have criminals, then you don't have cartels. That'd be the first step. Then same like with the medicine, of course, seeking a cure would be the step. No, they want to have you, soothed and not cured. And
can you imagine the frustration of these people that are really believers that drugs are an evil in society, and so they are part of this task force that are trying to end traffic and win the drugs war, and they keep seeing themselves blocked because all they can do is take a few head of the Hydra, but then 10 heads appear again, right? So tell me, with the technology that we have and the armies that we have, doesn't matter if it's today or if it is 30 years ago, what's so difficult from going to these people that are producing these drugs and eliminate everything and destroy every single thing and take control of the operation or whatever? So my question is, isn't exactly that what happened? They took control of the operation and they keep selling it to make money from it because it helps several agendas. It weakens the population, it creates chaos, and to bring a solution to that was take out a lot of pressures from society. That's not good for business, right? Because the war on drugs is even more ridiculous than the war on terrorism, because they know exactly where the drugs are being created. They know exactly who are the cartels. Even these guys even tattooed themselves to say, "I am part of the gang," right? So, and I'm talking at the actual farms, not the traffickers in the world. I'm talking about the actual places where this is produced, right? And if they wanted to destroy it, they would. It's like in Brazil. It's ridiculous how much control of the society these cartels on these hills, this I don't know how they call it, favelas. That's the name, a favela, where these cartels operate. They just have to say, every single decent person, evacuate, please. Now, we're giving you 1 hour to evacuate this place. And then they go in and they take it over because they are military. They are trained. Doesn't matter that those guys already have rocket launchers and all of that. They have all those weapons, but they don't have military training.
I think they actually did do that in Sao Paulo or another big city in Brazil a couple times, gone into the dense, like, inner hood favela, and they cleared out a bunch of people. There's battles. Cops got shot. Criminals got shot. They did it. They cleared the zone. A year later, it was all back.
All back. Look, in Brazil.
Not even a year, whatever it was.
This is unbelievable. They have expanded from the favelas to the blocks of the city. There are a number of blocks of the city where it's all crack people on the sidewalks, on the road itself, and the police doesn't enter there. It's block after block after block. It's just not favelas anymore. And they use military police. So they could eliminate the problem whenever they want. It will have cost of life. It would. But what is the cost of life of it progressing? Right? A continuous movement.
From an economic perspective, the only thing the government does that actually makes any money is sell drugs, right? Covert, obviously. But I mean, think about it. The only thing that they actually do where they're connecting the consumers with a product that they want is drug dealing, like they did in the 1980s with Bill Clinton in Arkansas, right? That was them actually making money for covert war.
It's been going on since the opium wars too.
It's the only thing that they do to make money. So let's just take that model. The pure reality of it is that they make money using drugs. And let's say, all right, you want to end the drug war? You have to be the sole producers of drugs in this country. And all the people you want to poison or whatever, they can get on those drugs and you can poison them directly. And we don't have to play this game anymore. You can just do it directly to the people who want to poison themselves with those drugs. And we'll just say, that's it. That's enough. We don't need any more of these imports from the third world. Our government, the only thing that they do to make money is produce drugs, and they give it directly to these junkies. And they're going to make sure that those junkies don't die, since that's a big priority of theirs.
Yeah, but
and we can reduce all this bloat, all this bureaucracy by 100%, get rid of 100% of the cartels south of the border instantaneously, end it all. And they're not going to do that because apparently there's a lot more money to be made this other way.
Of course.
And they don't keep their
prohibition makes money.
But look,
Right.
it's also the social degradation, because what point is this citizen have to be in order for someone to tell him, oh, I have this new drug, you'll find it amazing. It will kill you in 2 weeks and make you completely stupid, but it's amazing. And you say, yeah, I want to pay all the money that I have and don't. I'd even sell my body just for you to give me that piece of thing. Does this make any sense to you? Because it makes sense to me if you want to smoke a joint or if
I
you
don't
want
know.
to take mushrooms. But something that will kill you, that will take control of your life and bring you to an animal state, it doesn't make any sense. You have to be so degraded as a human being.
Yeah, I think that's what's happened. You got to have crossed so many really bad attributes to where making the choice to do that is thinkable, right?
Because people say, oh, we were just trying. Yeah, let me take you to the top of that cliff and let's just try jump.
Right. Well, I mean, look, it worked in Portugal, but Portugal became the sole producer of all the drugs, and you had to go to government facilities to get them. And they said, this is the only, we're not going to give you enough to overdose on. And so, yeah, there's a lot of junkies hanging around, but guess what? You've stopped total drug importation into your country.
Yeah, but
Just
they were
like that.
giving them methadone. That I just learned that the other places give it orally, which is more or less the same effect as heroin and replaces it. In Portugal, they were injecting it. If you couldn't inject it,
Oh my God.
they had the nurses on these containers that would help you inject it with it. So what happens is methadone was killing every single drug addict that was a heroin addict before, because it was being injected.
I mean, I know heroin addicts use injection, but I've never heard of methadone.
Yes, and that's exactly, to this day, although the number is now, let's imagine that it was 100%, now it's like 0.5, 1% that still does it. But you can still go to a pharmacy and say, I'm a heroin addict, and they give you the kit with the syringe, the methadone dose, and the rubber band that you put on your arm and inject yourself with the methadone. It's completely free. You don't have to pay for it.
I'm good.
So,
Maybe.
and you don't see much doing it.
Do they have free cannabis, free Portuguese cannabis?
No, if you, this is very interesting because you are not allowed,
guys.
Yeah. You're not allowed to sell it, but you are allowed to buy it.
Right.
To explain me how that works. Okay.
I think that it makes sense if you're trying to keep everybody on your system, right? You want them on your system. That's what they're just open about it. All right, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye-bye.